Hello everyone, it's time to do another updated deck profile for post set 6, this time on the standard or overdress Greedon deck or the Desire Devil deck, because set 6 has got us support for Greedon while set 7 hasn't, so why not just do the profile now? And I have to say, the few new cards that were in set 6 really did help out Greedon, because it's exactly what Greedon practically needed. One countercharge and one recycle. And recycling is definitely desperately needed. So, like last time, I did say this before, but I mainly built the Greedon deck. For one, I did not have a Dark State deck. Two, I pulled two Greedons, one being SP along with one triple rare, so then I went like fuck it and just built the deck anyway. And I did like Greedon's playstyle on how the soul sucking work and the concept of it. And it was quite interesting to me that I actually just built it anyway. And it was very cheap to build as well, another reason to build it. And it was my first Dark State decks, but it's not going to be my main one as soon as Drag Jewel comes because I like Drag Jewel a lot more. That's going to be my main Dark State deck. This one will be my secondary. Design-wise, not really my favorite thing, but I just like the concept of mob boss dragons and all that. That's what I call Greedon, the mob boss dragon. And it's a very simple deck to play. Just build up your board, suck everything up, Vanguard attack only deck. And because it's a Vanguard attack only deck practically, you're going to need to watch your deck size, and that is something that Greedon did have before. But now with set 6 we have a new recycling card, which really helped out Greedon a lot. And funny enough, it's not even a foil card. And yeah, that's how useful it is and cheap it is. So I'm glad that it was cheap, although at the same time I would like it to be shiny just to glitter out the deck, but oh well. But anyway, let's start with the deck profile with, of course, the Ride deck. So of course, like usual, we start out with the starter, Desire Devil Tauda, which looks like Chamusuke, which I rather just call it Chamusuke. And then we go to Desire Devil Guman. So the skill is, for the Vanguard one, is when you ride the Bokashu on top of it, you reveal your grade 3 regular Greedon and draw a card. Yeah, you literally reveal your grade 3 from your Ride deck just to draw a card, which is such a funny condition, and I still laugh to this day about that. Well, the minute that you show Chamusuke, people should already know that's going to be your grade 3, but okay. But it has a second skill which you can use, and it can be useful, but unfortunately you're not going to be using it in this deck now because there's no soul calling. I took that card out. There's no drop zone calling it either, and I'm only running this for the Ride deck. But the second skill is, if you wish to use it, when you suck it to soul through your Vanguard's ability, you can counterblast one, and for the rest of the turn, for your Vanguard attack, your opponent must use 2 or more cards to guard at the same time. There is some sort of combo that you can do with Greedon where you can technically do the Raging Form tactic for triple attack Greedon. It's not consistent, so I'm not relying on that. But it is doable, and doing that for 2 attacks with that Battle Dora guard restrict can be nasty, but it's not consistent, so that's not happening for this deck. You only do it for the Ride deck. Next, Boshuku, which is going to be a 4 of. I'm going to spoil that right now. So when you ride the Greedon, you can put a card from your hand to soul, which of course fills your soul. And then you search for a copy of itself and add to your hand, which is why it's a 4 of. Because it's also for the second skill where count soul. If your damage zone has 4 or more cards while your Vanguard is Greedon, it gets plus 5k power. And yes, this does stack, so you have 4 of these, that's plus 20k power. And since this is a Vanguard attack only deck technically, that really helps out a lot. And now we go to, of course, the Adversarius Demonic Dragon Greedon, the boss unit that is not Desire Devil while the archetype is still Desire Devil. But okay. So it has 2 skills and it's not once per turn. So keep that one in mind. That's why I said Raging Form tactic. So the first one is that if you have a copy of himself in soul, your death count is now at 7. That represents the 7 deadly sins. And yeah, being at 6 damage it makes your opponent can't heal at their 5th damage, which can be funny sometimes. Which does make it pretty unique in a way. But the second skill is basically kind of like the Raging Form type skill or the Vanguard attack only skill where at the end of battle discard attack you can Soul Blast 2, put 4 of your standing rearguard to your soul, stand this unit, and if your soul has 10 more cards, plus 15k. So basically once you reach your 10 soul, it doesn't really matter anymore. 10 soul is all you need. But the fact that this is not once per turn basically makes a Raging Form tactic possible if there is the consistency to do that. It is possible, not very consistent, especially when you have to regenerate the 4 rearguards every time. But this is overall quite deadly sometimes because restanding Vanguard purposes, yes, you lose 4 standing rearguards, which can in turn be 2 rearguard attacks sometimes. But with some recent rearguard support and all that, you can basically still get 1 rearguard attack, so it isn't entirely bad. But do watch out for your drive checks, Because this is a Vanguard attack only deck, you do need to watch your deck right here. But luckily, we do have a support card that does help this out a little bit to not make sure you deck out too quickly, but still watch out. Because we still have to remember, this is Dark States as well. Soul charging is a thing. And now to the main deck itself. Of course, for both Persona Ride reasons, along with his own skill, you have to run the remaining 3 copies. And you want to suck it to soul even without Persona Riding. So yeah, of course you have to run more copies of these. And then next, 3 Desired Devil Defend. So when placed, and your Vanguard is Greedon, the first Greedon, if they ever make a second one, you may soul charge 2. This of course helps because you do want to reach your 10 soul. And this is also a rearguard support for Greedon because of its second skill where auto rearguard. When this card attacks, if you have 2 or more adversarious dragon Greedon in your soul, cost count +1, this card gets +1 crit to end that battle. So basically crit pressure on your rearguard. Sure, it doesn't get powered on its own, but Greedon itself can get quite a bit of power, especially with all the support it already has. So giving your trigger power right here isn't too bad. Just do beware, like I said, this is Dark States along with Greedon being a Vanguard attack only deck practically, so you do need to watch your deck size. But that soul charge really does help because you do want to build up 10 as soon as you can, so of course you still want to see this, and this is your main rear guard attack card as well. Another reason why you do want to run 3 to 4. I originally ran 4, but I took one out for a new card because you don't need to see that many of these, but at the same time you do want to see it. And now to the grade 2s. Like I said earlier, you do want to run 4 of these, especially if more copies of these means more power for Greedon. Next, Desire Devil Cannon. So this one is another card that you have to be watching your deck size for, where when placed on rearguard during your main phase, cost count +1, look at top card of your deck and call it to rearguard at the end of the turn, retire that unit. That retire part is very likely not going to happen, because Greedon is just going to suck its soul. The purpose of this is obviously to rebuild your board, because Greedon requires 4 rearguards to suck in for the restand, and that's the only reason why you run 4 of this, because this is to refund your board. And now to a new card, Desire Devil Koduku. And it's a common, surprisingly, a really good one. Because when this card attacks while not being boosted, while your Vanguard is Adversarious Demonic Dragon Greedon, choose up to 4 normal units that are Desired Devils from your drop zone, and put them back to your deck. And of course, shuffle it. And if you turn 4 cards, plus 10k. So 20k beater by returning 4 Desired Devils. This is very important, because remember, like I said earlier, Vanguard attack only deck, meaning Twin Drive. And I forget to mention that Greedon is double Twin Drive. And this is Dark States as well. So there's soul charging involved, so keep that one in mind as well. So this card really helps you a lot just to prevent deck out. Obviously, run it. Sure, it's not going to be boosted, but very unlikely to be boosted anyway for your rearguard support because you're sucking 4 rearguards in, which in turn is going to be very likely 1 more rearguard in your front row, which will be another attacker. So that boosting part is not really going to matter too much. What's really important about this is that the fact that it just recycles. You just don't want to deck out as soon as you can, and being a 20k beater really helps out a lot as well. And this is more of a late game card, which is also why I run 3. Originally I ran 2 and 4 defund, but because you don't want to risk losing this and you do still want to see it, at least 1 copy, I run the 3rd one just in case. So that's it for the grade 2 lineup. To the grade 1 lineup, Desire Devil Bubitsu. This one is basically your Raging Form tactic card, if you can manage to get a bunch of Bubitsus, because the skill is auto, once per turn, when your other rearguard is put to soul by your Vanguard's ability during the turn, cost count +1, choose a card from your hand and call it to open rearguard, and if your soul has 10 or more cards, draw a card. Like I said, you just want your 10 so you could actually reach our full power purposes, but the main point is that you call another card, because doing that basically activates more skills, or at least 1 card specific skill, but this can give you another rearguard attack, and in some cases maybe even fuel Greedon's second restand, because it is possible. Just do be aware of Greedon like usual with your deck size, but either way it just really helps you out. It gets you another attack, either from Greedon or another rearguard attack, and also the draw is pretty nice. Next, Desire Devil Shito. Originally I ran 4 of these, but with the new Kuduku, I cut it down to 2 because Kuduku can just recycle, and that's very important, and more important than you trying to get more soul when you already have enough good soul charge engine. Because this card's skill is that when you suck it to soul through your Vanguard's ability, you can choose 1 card from your drop zone and put it to soul. It's basically just to prevent you from using your deck for soul charging originally, but with the recycling, that's not as hurtful, so cut it down to 2 is fine. And finally, another new card, and this one is actually very important to run. Desire Devil Kavaski. So the skill is when you put to your soul by your Vanguard Greedon, or Adversarius Demonic Dragon Greedon, we still don't have another Greedon yet, so this will matter one day. If you did not countercharge this turn, you countercharge 1. So basically, main countercharge engine. No questions asked, you must play it because of that. And the deck desperately needed countercharging, so now we got it. Luckily, it doesn't use counterblast like super quickly, but it does go quick enough that you do want at least that one counterblast through something. But the second skill is Auto Soul. When your rearguard is placed by card ability, and your Vanguard is Adversarius Dragon Greedon, and your damage zone has 4 more cards, the called unit gets +5 key power until end of turn. Yeah, rearguard support cards. Yep, pretty good. And that's where Bubitsu kind of becomes a little more important because Bubitsu can call more stuff mid-battle, and that extra power for those units really do help out because your rearguards are still lackluster compared to what your Vanguard mob boss would be doing. And yeah, it does stack, so more of these the better. But what's important is the countercharge. And finally, of course, the 4 PGs. Yeah, I do not have enough copies of the Blitz Order PG, so the 4th one of this is fine. And now for the trigger lineup, we have to have the standard over trigger. And then a crits. Since fronts are not really good at this deck, and the max amount of trigger types that you can run is 8, I unfortunately have to run the draws despite not wanting to. But at the same time, draws really do help because that does refund your field in a way. But fronts are not that great for the deck because you're going to be losing your rear guards. And finally, the 4 heals, 2 of them being the new heals with abilities. So that's it for this deck profile on my updated Greedon deck for post set 6 for Overdress. What do you guys think of it? What other cards would you recommend? I mean, my deck probably just looks very similar to many other people. It is meant to be just a fun deck, nothing really like super meta or anything. And I overall have fun with it. I like the style of it. Probably not the design-wise in the most part, but it is my only Dark State deck right now until Drag Jeweled is a thing. But other than that, I do have fun with it. And it did take a while for some needed support like Recycle plus Countercharge, but we finally got it and this deck has been working pretty well. And the Recycle actually has saved me a few times, so yeah, that really helped out. I'm just surprised it was common. But in that's really all I have to say about it. There's not like super big changes, but since the next set doesn't have any Greedon stuff, might just do the profile now. But in see you all next time.